Got it. Okay, good morning, everybody. We are getting started here. I see people are joining us, and we're going to wait for people to keep joining us. I'm Lauren Marino Perez. I work at the NAT here in our education department. I'm joined by Mr. Christopher Plouffe today from our paleontology department. Hi, Chris. We're going to keep waiting a little bit while people keep signing on because we have a lot of people joining us. And in the meantime, we want you guys to all know you're not going to be able to see each other. And you're not going to be able to hear each other. Your screens are turned off and you're muted. You can say hi in the chat and let us know where you're joining us from. Only you guys, we're only going to see what you post to us, to the host. So Chris and I and my friend Emma, you guys might know Emma if you've joined us before behind the screens here. You can only I'm sorry, I'm already getting distracted by all the chats here because we have people from Oceanside, Molar Charter School, people from California, Palmdale, California. That's so cool. Miss Lachelle's class from Highland Ranch and Poway. Wow, we have so many people joining us, Chris. I'm so excited. This is awesome. We're going to talk about Poway a little bit actually today and fossils that, well, you don't find there, but what you see there. Oceanside. Pear Blossom 5th grade, all sorts of people joining us from all over. This is so exciting. Also wanted to let people know that we're recording this, so it'll be on our Facebook. It's also going to be on the museum's YouTube, which we'll post in a week or two. Just so you're aware of that. I'm going to throw that in the chat so you guys know. You can also access closed captions on our Facebook, so you can select that. Let's see who else is joining us. We have all sorts of Shasta Lake School. Wow. Somebody says go Rams, which is super cool. We're in Balboa Park in San Diego for people who are joining us from outside of San Diego, which is so exciting to see. For people who are joining us from San Diego, hopefully you've gotten to visit us at the museum. If not, I hope you come soon. Let's see if I'm missing anybody else here. I just want to make sure we're saying hi to everybody. Highland Ranch, I think I already said that. 4 more messages. Oh my gosh, somebody from Sweden? Eric and David in Sweden. That's super exciting. What? The museum school. Wow. Okay, so many people are joining us. And SH Academy, Highland Ranch and Poway, 5th grade. Yep. Okay, so I am like super excited. Lots of people from Highland Ranch. That's awesome. Glad you guys are saying hi to us. We have a lot to cover today, so I don't want to belabor it anymore. I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Christopher. He is so nice for joining us today. He's really busy. He runs the lab at the museum in their paleontology department. He's going to tell you a little bit more about that, but he is always running around being busy at the museum. So we're really lucky he joined us today. Thanks so much for making time for us. We really appreciate it, Chris. So welcome, Chris. And we'd love to hear a little bit more about fossils in San Diego, also what you do at the museum. We'll have time for your questions at the end, everybody, just so you know, but feel free to put them in the chat as well. So without much further ado, welcome, Mr. Christopher.
Thank you, Lauren. Hello, everyone. My name is Christopher Plouffe, and I'm a paleontologist here at the San Diego Natural History Museum. Right now, I primarily run the fossil preparation lab here, and that is a space where we take fossils that have been found out in the field, and we do preparation as well as stabilization, so a future generation of paleontologists can have our fossils to look at so they don't fall apart over time. I, at one point, did some field work, so I was out in the field collecting fossils, but these days I'm primarily in-house at the museum, working on the fossils that have come from the field, from our other field paleontologists. Today we are going to take a very brief and very quick journey through the geology and paleontology of San Diego County. So for all of you that are outside of San Diego, I'm sorry, but this will give you kind of a brief introduction to what's going on in Southern California. The first question is, what is paleontology? And it is the scientific study of life that has existed. Pretty basic. And if we're going to be studying something, we need to have, what are we studying? And so we are studying fossils. And fossils are any type of evidence that has existed in the past. Really quick, we're going to take a little quiz. What do you think can turn into a fossil? So what kind of evidence would you be looking for that would be a fossil?
Okay, let's restart it. Here you guys go. You should
So
have
there's a little quiz on your screen right now. Of those, which ones do you feel can be fossils?
Yeah, and I see somebody asked a question like dinosaurs. So that's a good question. Dinosaurs are made up of bones, right? So,
Right.
and I see a lot of people are saying bone shells. Some people are saying leaf impressions. Some people are saying all the above.
All right.
Okay.
What the tally is.
Let's see here.
All right, perfect. I'm really happy to see that at least bones are tied with all of the above. So the correct answer is all of the above. Each one of those are types of fossils that we find as paleontologists. So trackways could be something as footprints left in mud. Burrows is the activity of digging in the dirt. So there are some vertical burrows or horizontal burrows. Shells, clams, or snails can be fossilized. It looked like everyone agrees that bones are fossils. Yes, we do find fossilized bones. And yes to leaf impression. So that's very fantastic when we get an impression of a leaf, because leaves are made of soft tissue. They're not made of something hard. So preserving them or making sure that they turn into a fossil takes very special circumstances. So good job, you guys.
Yeah, that was kind of a tricky one for all of the above.
So I can't advance.
Is it freezing again?
Uh-huh.
Maybe we need to like wait a second and let it freeze. And I see somebody, David, is saying that's why there's so many. So there are footprints in the museum. That's true. We do have footprints in the museum and a lot of museums.
There we go.
There we go.
And we're live. So correct. The answer is all of the above. Each one of those can be fossils.
Oh my God, Chris, I'm sorry. I just have to say, people are joining us from Iowa. That's so cool. Okay.
Again, this is going to be the most brief geology talk you've ever heard. So we're going to talk really quickly about the different types of rocks. And there are 3 rocks in the rock cycle. We have metamorphic rocks, igneous rocks, and sedimentary rocks. So igneous rocks are from deep within the earth, as is metamorphic rocks. A metamorphic rock is something that has been cooked, and we can cook things with heat or with pressure. So some of you might have an Instapot, and that's how we can cook things, with pressure and with heat. So that's how we cook rocks as well. An igneous rock is a rock that is formed deep within the earth from molten magma. So, and as that cools down, depending on what it's made of, it'll turn into a certain type of igneous rock. So some people use the word granite here. And then sedimentary rock is rocks that are layered on top of each other. And these can be terrestrial, land, or marine sediments. I like to think of sedimentary rocks as a cake. So if you're going to build a cake, you build your red velvet, then your frosting, then your funfetti, and then we're repeating to a red velvet, a frosting, and a funfetti. So if I were to drop a complete chocolate cake on top of this red velvet funfetti cake, we would have repeating units of this funfetti and red velvet, and another repeating unit, and then the chocolate cake. So the distinct cake of being chocolate is a formation where we would find specific fossils. And then we would find other fossils in a different formation that would be older, since it's underneath the chocolate cake in this red velvet funfetti. I like to talk about cake. I'm sorry, you guys.
Never apologize for talking about cake.
So again, we've got the 3 types of rocks: igneous, metamorphic, and sedimentary. And those are the 3 types of rocks in San Diego. So our next topic is tectonics. Earth is a very dynamic planet, and on Earth we have oceanic crust and continental crust, and these are these plates that are moving around the Earth, and some are converging, meaning that they're coming together. Others are diverging, which means they're running away from each other. And then some of them really like each other where they're rubbing up against each other in a strike-slip motion. So living in San Diego, we have experienced some converging, diverging, and strike-slip activities that have influenced the geology of our county. The San Andreas Fault is very close to us. It's just east of the county line. And this activity has affected a lot of the geologic provinces that are here in San Diego. And so when I'm speaking of these provinces, these are just very distinct regions San Diego is composed of. And San Diego has 3 specific areas. Now, this is a map of San Diego County. The area in blue is where we find fossils. And if I remember from what I said before, sedimentary rocks are the sediments that contain fossils. So the sedimentary rocks are on the coast as well as in the desert. And then right in the middle of San Diego County, we have what is called the Peninsular Range, which is made of these igneous and metamorphic rocks from deep within the earth where we don't find fossils. Again, the 3 provinces will begin with deserts. One of the examples is the Anza Borrego Desert State Park, where is a place where you can go out and see fossils, but you cannot collect fossils there. The desert has not only sediments from land, like in the form of rivers and streams and lakes, but also marine fossils that were deposited in an ancient ocean. The second range is the Peninsular Range, again, which runs right through the middle of San Diego County. So Baja Peninsula is down here, and this mountain range extends just into San Diego County before it gets cut off by the Mojave Desert. So this Peninsular Range is right in the middle. And if you live in Poway or Rancho Bernardo, you might be familiar with these rounded rocks. And these are rocks that are igneous that were formed deep within the earth and then have come to the surface due to tectonic activity. And the third geomorphic range in San Diego County is the Coast Range. And so we find sedimentary rocks in La Jolla, Point Loma, downtown San Diego. And again, here is this like laminated bedding of sediments that continue over time, where the oldest are on the bottom and the youngest are on the top. If we were to take a slice of the San Diego cake, we would see that there is a basement rock, which are these rocks that came from the center of the earth, the middle of the earth, that were hot and molten. And then our sedimentary history begins in the Cretaceous, and then we move to the Eocene, the next oldest, then to the Oligocene, the Pliocene, and then the Pleistocene. So the oldest rocks in San Diego that are exposed at the surface are Cretaceous rocks that we would find in Point Loma. Now, from the previous slide, I mentioned that Cretaceous rocks were the oldest rocks found in San Diego. That means that these rocks or these sediments down here, this time period, is not observed anywhere at the surface in San Diego. It doesn't mean that they don't exist. It just means that those sediments are so deep within the earth that we don't see them. So they might be down there, but they probably aren't. So we have the geologic and paleontologic history from the Cretaceous, about 145 million years, to the present. We are going to begin our fossil journey in the Pleistocene, and the Pleistocene is also known as the Ice Ages. Now, there's a very popular movie out there called Ice Ages. Now, I haven't seen it, so I cannot speak about the scientific accuracy of it, but I'm assuming that they tell you that there was ice in the Ice Ages. So things were moving from hot to cold at this time. And these fluctuations gave us both marine and land sediments. So in this mural here that's seen in the Fossil Mysteries exhibit at the Natural History Museum, we have a saber-toothed cat, there's a dire wolf, and then there's a horse. So although we haven't found saber-toothed cats in San Diego, we assume that they lived here because we find saber-toothed cats in Los Angeles, which is very close proximity to San Diego. And we find a lot of the other animals in San Diego also in Los Angeles. The Pleistocene is 2.5 million to 10,000 years ago. So this is the very top of our pile of cakes that I was speaking about earlier. If each cake was on top of each other as formations. Again, the Ice Ages was a period of climatic fluctuations, hot to cold, and there was ice on the continent on the left slide here. So that means you take the water out of the ocean and you're putting it on land. And then when things would get warm, that would melt and then flood the oceans and sea levels would rise. So San Diego would experience, we think, up to 700 feet of change in ocean level. Is also found in San Diego at this time is we have the American lion, ground sloths, mammoths, and mastodons. This over here is a tapir. So it's kind of a warm, lush, subtropical environment, San Diego during the ice ages. Here we have some fossils that were found in San Diego, a mammoth tusk. Here we have a fossil preparator working on teeth that were found with the mammoth. And also from San Diego during the Pleistocene, we see we have horses, camels, and llamas. Now, we might think camels in San Diego. Yes, these animals actually evolved in North America, and they diversified, and then they distributed worldwide. Our next slice, or our next cake down is the Pliocene, and that's about 5 million years to 2.5 million years ago. And San Diego at this point was underwater. So we have a very rich environment of whales, dolphins, manatees. What's this down in the corner? Is that a walrus? So yes, San Diego had walruses, and we determined from the animals how warm or cold the earth was depending on who was here. And walruses are typically a cold water mammal. And so to find them in San Diego, we've come to the conclusion that this must have been a warmer water species of walrus that have now gone extinct. And this is the skull that we found of this walrus here in San Diego. We also find whales. There were manatees in San Diego. Typically, we find manatees in warmer water environments. Again, San Diego was warmer back 2.5 to 5 million years ago. So we found them off the coast here, but things have cooled down significantly where they no longer live here, and you might find them in Florida. Also from the San Diego Formation, this Pliocene aged sediments, we find shark's teeth, sand dollars and shells. And then the next period that we will move to in the geologic history of San Diego is the Miocene Epoch. But we're going to go from the coast range where we just were, and now we're going to go inland to the desert where we have the sediments that were deposited from a marine environment. So the Miocene on the coast was formations that haven't produced too many fossils. And then the shaded area we see in this graphic of the timeline are time periods that the sediments have not been preserved. So it's not a continuous record of sedimentation. So we lay down a bunch of cakes, but then we decide to eat cakes from the top down, and then we lay more cakes on top of that. So that's how we get a timeline that is missing certain time periods. Out in the desert, we have Miocene aged material. This is a little human down here for scale. So you can see these sedimentary beds, these layers that have been deposited on top of each other that are from a marine environment. And we know it's marine because of the fossils we're finding. This ancestral ocean of the Miocene out in the desert extended. This is a map of Southern California. So the border between San Diego or the United States and Mexico is right here. The Salton Sea is here. And this blue part is where we think the ocean came in, which is mostly the desert of eastern San Diego County. Fossils that we find out in the desert, petrified wood. These are clams. High spire snails are typically indicators of warm water environments. So we see these cone-like snails out there. This photo is upside down, but it still shows oysters. So there are a ton of oysters in this mat of shells. The coral reef was also preserved out there with sand dollars and snails. And so it was a very rich marine environment, this coral reef that we had during the Miocene out in eastern San Diego County. Now, western San Diego County during the Miocene, we don't really have a record. That's where we saw that shaded part of the graph before. Just recently, we worked on a location where we now have a terrestrial collection of mammals from Southern California. So we're very interested. We're currently working through those fossils right now. So in about a year or two, we'll be able to speak more about that. But we just found ourselves a missing page in the book, or a missing cake in the pile.
Wow, that's kind of amazing to know that even with all that we already know, there's still stuff out there that you can
Fossils to be
still
found.
discover. Yeah,
Yeah,
very cool.
so I'm going to encourage everyone to grab a shovel tonight and go in their backyard. No, I'm kidding. Don't do that. So their next time period is the Oligocene Epoch, and this is about 40 million years to 23 million years ago. And from this picture, we can see that things, again, are tropical, subtropical. Things are cooking most of the time in San Diego. We're pretty warm, just because we're so close to the equator. In this photo, we see the ancestral rhinoceros, some ancestral carnivores that were roaming the landscape of San Diego.
And Chris, when you say ancestral, do you mean those are before we had like the modern day equivalent? They're relatives, like?
So the term that I kind of tell people is, there are these things called Pokemon, some of you might be familiar with, and they evolve. And so they change into different forms. And so that's kind of how you want, instead of taking the most advanced form, take it back a couple of levels, if that makes any sense.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So cool. These are, when I say ancestral pig, that means it's not the modern day pig. It's what the pig looked like a long time ago before it got to the modern day pig.
Okay.
Okay. The really neat thing about the Oligocene time period is San Diego has one of the most comprehensive fossil records of this time frame. So we have not only marine sediments that were preserved, but also land sediments or terrestrial sediments that have been preserved. So we have a great snapshot of what was happening at this time period in San Diego. So it's very fossil rich, not just this time period, but the next time period we'll talk about as well. So Southern California, San Diego specifically, we are very fortunate to have these fossils preserved. So I was talking about the pig earlier. So this is the ancestral pig. It's called Cespia. It might be like Chihuahua size. And then this is the cousin of the ancestral pig. So it's, again, another ancestral pig called the Mesoreodon. So this might have been a little bit bigger, probably like basset hound size, roaming around San Diego. Also in our fossil record from this time period, we have a lot of rodents, and rodents are very fascinating because they're very diverse, and each rodent has its own environment that it likes to live in. So, and when it has that environment, it has specific foods that it likes to eat. And so the teeth, or your dentition, adapts to the type of food you are eating. So we will look at these rodent teeth to see who was living where at what time, and we can determine, not only like what they were eating, but like what animal that it came from, because these animals are very specific. As a omnivore, we have molars that are flat in the back for grinding. We have canines in the front for slicing and dicing. So if you're an herbivore, you mostly have these flat teeth, you can see right here, and then these kind of sharp teeth to slice and dice and chew in. The period that we will look at next is the Eocene Epoch, and that is about 55 to 34 million years ago. And this is when Earth was really cooking. And from this mural, you can see palm trees in the background. And so whenever we see palm trees, we think of a nice, sunny, California landscape. So again, San Diego was the beautiful, sunny place is now as it was back then. So we look at these plants to tell us how the environment was. So we make our reconstructions based on who was living there at that time. And plants are unique because they can't move. They're stuck where they're growing. So that'll tell us directly how warm or cold the Earth was, depending on what kind of plants we find in the fossil record.
I wonder if it was a vacation hotspot then too.
Yeah. So the Eocene is quite a large chunk of time here. We got 14 million years. And again, San Diego has a great fossil record. The sedimentation was fantastic. The preservation was amazing. So we have a lot of fossils in this time period. Some of them are these tapirs. Now this is the carnivore I was speaking of. They've got these like sharp, jagged teeth for slicing and dicing. This is another carnivore up here. Again, very sharp teeth for cutting meat. And then down here we have an herbivore, and it has these flat teeth for grinding on plants. So like on leaves, perhaps on grass, because it was tropical, subtropical forest. They probably didn't have too much when it came to grass, but probably very thick, robust, meaty leaves to chew on. Also from the Eocene, we see brontotheres, and these are these large ancestral rhinoceri that would be roaming San Diego. Also from this time period, we have marine sediments. One of the places that I'm going to suggest you guys go for fossil hunting, if you are in San Diego County, is the Solana Beach Dog Beach. If you simply just walk either north or south of the parking, you'll find these types of fossils on the cliffs, and these are fossils that you can collect. We also see these Eocene shells that the shell material is actually preserved, which is fascinating that in 40 million years, these fragile shells haven't broken down. And here are some of the plant fossils that we find, again, that give us this paleo environmental reconstruction, or basically how we can see the past environments based on these types of plant fossils. And then here's a palm frond that has been preserved. And some more plant fossils that are very indicative of this kind of tropical, subtropical environment. Next on our journey back in time is the Cretaceous period. And many of you know the Cretaceous period as the age of the dinosaurs. Now, San Diego was underwater and offshore at this point in time. So we do have a dinosaur that has been found in sediments that are in San Diego, but these sediments, again, were underwater and far offshore. All of the formations in the Cretaceous that are preserved in San Diego are these offshore marine, very fine grained sediments. So we see lots of shells, we see these snails, we see these ammonites that would be floating in the water column. These are the ancestral nautili. So these would be floating. Mosasaurs, we assume, lived in San Diego, but we haven't found a mosasaur fossil to confirm that. We also have one specimen that is a dinosaur, this ankylosaur, and we don't have the entire dinosaur, we just have a bit of it because it lived on land and then it died and then it washed out to sea. And then by the time it sunk to the bottom of the ocean, it disarticulated, and that's just a fancy word for it, fell apart. And so all that we got was the hips and the legs, the butt basically of the dinosaur. So this is our dinosaur specimen here in San Diego, but all the dinosaurs were living in Colorado, Utah, Montana, the Dakotas, the center of the United States. We also see very other small bits and pieces that have washed offshore and deposited in San Diego that are dinosaur fossils. But mostly San Diego was this very, again, marine environment with mosasaurs and ammonites. And that concludes our journey back in time. That was really quick and very brief.
There's a lot. I mean, you're covering millions of years in like 20 minutes. So there's sure to be a lot of questions, and we actually have some already that people have been asking that we would love to ask you.
Perfect.
One of the fun ones, which I mean, somebody's asking, what is the biggest animal to go extinct? And I don't think that's necessarily in San Diego.
I would assume like some of these dinosaurs got to be really large, titanosaurs and seismosaurs. I am not a dinosaur paleontologist, so I cannot speak intimately about dinosaurs. But yeah, I believe that those are some of the largest animals.
Some of those like long necks, kind of sauropod ones that we see. Yeah, okay, that makes sense to me. But we still, I mean, people overlook like blue whales. Those guys
they're pretty big too.
They're still alive, and that's pretty amazing. Somebody asked, how did the plants get into the rocks when they saw those plant fossils?
Okay, so when a leaf falls off of a tree, it'll fall onto the ground. So we call this like the floor of the forest. And then let's say a storm comes along or wind blows it into a river, and then that river takes it into a lake, and then it deposits into one of the sedimentary layers of that lake. Now, to get a fossil, certain things have to happen in a certain order. And so there has to be rapid deposition, which means basically once you die, you need to be covered with dirt. So this leaf needs to float out into this lake, and then immediately more dirt needs to flow on top and deposit on top of it for it to be preserved.
So it seems pretty special that we even get fall. Like it's just like this very lucky
Yes.
they even happen. Somebody has a question, which I think people will be really surprised by the answer. How many fossils does the gnat have in its
Ooh.
collection?
So that number is increasing daily.
Yeah,
We always have fossils coming in. Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you. Why do I think like 3 million is one of the numbers? That's
I
kind
would.
of what's popping in my head right now.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. There are a lot, and they can be teeny tiny or really big, like the whales, right? Or
But
just the skulls, and yeah, it's such variety. It's really amazing when you get to see it. Um, what other questions are there? Oh, somebody says, which I think was Ankylosaurus fossil. Somebody would like to know how old the dinosaur butt is. Do you know
um,
about how old that fossil is?
we think that that came as around 80 million, 85 million, I believe, is our estimated time of when that was found.
Very old. And then somebody else was saying, I think one of the questions is like, how do we get all these fossils? How do we find them? Like,
So to find fossils, you got to dig. So hopefully there is someone out there digging. And we have people like the California Transit Agency, Caltrans, and they are building freeways. And sometimes they remove hillsides to widen these freeways. So when they're digging, they'll find fossils. Or if you're digging for a track home development, they'll find fossils as they're digging. In that downtown, when you want to build a skyscraper, you have to build parking for all the people in that skyscraper. So they'll dig below the surface and we'll find fossils as they're digging below the surface. So we do some contract work here where we go out and we monitor construction sites in town, and that's how we find a majority of our fossils.
wow. That feels lucky. But is that like if we were in another city, would people just digging down tend to find fossils, or is San Diego or like our region kind of special in like the number of fossils we have, or is it
Remember, it all depends on the sediments that you're working in. So if you are digging in Poway in those rocks where it's igneous metamorphic, you wouldn't find any fossils. You could just dig all day long and most likely not find anything. But being here on the coast, or if you're in Orange County or Los Angeles County, depending on the rock type you're working in would determine what kind of fossil the paleontologist would be looking for.
okay? Very cool. I noticed that somebody was asking about the rock cycle, and could we find all the different types of rocks, metamorphic, igneous, sedimentary? Do we have to dig down to find examples of each of those, or are some of them, are they all on the surface? Like, how do you find them?
So, so my example of igneous rocks would be those Poway rocks those rounded granite boulders that you see in the center of San Diego County. The metamorphic rocks in San Diego, there's something called Catalina blue schist, which is a metamorphic rock. And that was a rocks that have been cooked with pressure, a high pressure, low temperature. Because again, you can cook with pressure or temperature. Um, so you can see these rocks in San Diego County. They're just not widely distributed, the metamorphic ones. And you would find metamorphic rocks in areas that are with igneous rocks, most likely. They're usually kind of hand in hand. And then sedimentary rocks are eroded versions of the igneous or metamorphic rocks.
Okay. Oh, wow. Interesting. Yep. That's why it's a cycle. Do we have, what is the oldest fossil that we have at the museum?
So the oldest fossil we have at the museum was found in Rancho Penasquitos, and it's about 145 million years old, and it's this clam that was found. And so there are these few outcrops, which is basically sediments that are exposed at the surface. There's these outcrops that have produced these shells. But from my understanding, I think development has like taken away those outcrops. So we have a handful of fossils from this formation. It's called the Penasquitos Formation.
Okay. Do you know what the biggest fossil we have in our collection is?
We have a bunch of whales, so I would say our whales are our biggest fossils. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're pretty dang big. Yeah.
And somebody was asking about the dinosaur fossils we have, which you went into a little bit, is that we really don't have it a lot, right?
Yeah. So San Diego is underwater at this point in time, and dinosaurs are these animals that were living on land. So a mosasaur isn't a dinosaur. A pterosaur, or the flying birds up on the screen, I think it's still up, those are not considered to be dinosaurs. They're dinosaur adjacent, but they're not proper dinosaurs. So dinosaurs had to be terrestrial, living on land. So because we were offshore, and not just offshore, but really offshore, it required a lot for that specimen to float that far out to sea and then eventually sink down. So yeah, we don't have a very wild fossil record of the Cretaceous that is dinosaur in San Diego. It's very, very spotty. There's just bits and pieces.
Somebody's asking if there were, and somebody was saying if they went to the Dog Beach, like what sort of fossils would they find? That one that you recommended, Solana Beach.
So those are primarily clams and snails, so bivalves and gastropods that are in the rocks that are on like these bedded layers that you'd be walking on. So it's in Solana Beach. It's called the Del Mar Formation, and it's about 52 million years old.
Wow. So you could be touching something at the beach that's 52 million years old.
Yeah, you can find shells that were once in the ocean that are now back in the ocean.
Wow. Somebody's asking how many different fossils do we have at the museum?
Oof. Diversity is there's so much diversity. Yeah, there's lots of, not only there's diversity over time in each formation. So yeah, there's quite a bit of different fossils here. But don't get me wrong, there are a lot of the same type of fossils. We'll find these echinoderm, or the sand dollar beds in Otay, and it's just sand dollars. It's basically a layer of sand dollars. It's fascinating.
Oh, wow. How interesting. And then some people were asking, when you do find fossils, how do you go about reconstructing what the animal or the organism looked like?
Very carefully. So the great thing about being at the Natural History Museum is that we have the San Diego Zoo right next door. And the San Diego Zoo has animals that are so diverse from all over the world in different types of environments. And so when those animals pass away, we are fortunate to receive them, and we have a comparative collection. So if we find a fossil and we don't know what it is, we can go into the birds and mammals collection and take a look at what fossils it might look like or very similar to. So we're looking at different types of shapes to help us figure out what kind of animal it is.
Okay, so you look at things alive now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just totally pulled out of the air. There's so many great questions. Sorry, I'm just trying to go through them. People are really interested about your job at the museum, and what's your favorite part of your job?
My favorite part is that every day is different. So I can be in the field one day, I could be working on a 15 million year old fossil, or a 10,000-year-old fossil, and then I manage about 18 volunteers that come in and help me prepare fossils, because there are a lot of fossils to prepare and I can't do it myself. Yeah.
That's very cool. I'm so glad you said that, because we have amazing volunteers at the museum. So when you guys get older, or if there are already people out there that are already, in their late teens, you might want to look into the museum's website and look at our volunteer opportunities, because we do have people helping us, and it's really important. We couldn't do it without them. So you might see if you want to be a paleontologist when you get older. How did you decide you wanted to be a paleontologist?
I went on a geology camping trip. It was a weekend course. It was a half a unit, pass or fail, in college. And I fell in love with being outside and learning about nature and rocks. And because my background was in chemistry and biology, I had to translate that into geology, which meant paleontology.
Very cool. Oh, that's neat. I didn't know that. Somebody asked, what is the weirdest fossil you guys have found, or you have found?
One of the most interesting, I don't want to call it weird, but I'm going to call it interesting. We believe to have cartilaginous bone from a shark. So that typically doesn't get preserved. So that's kind of one of the weirder things that we have that we're working on currently are these this vertebral column that we think is from a shark.
Oh, wow. Interesting. And then somebody wanted to know, were people around when some of this fossil life was around in San Diego?
So in the ice ages, yes, there were humans.
Very cool.
But prior to that, there were not. There were the ancestral humans. So human-like creatures that lived in the past, these primates.
Very cool. But not like modern humans with the dinosaurs.
Correct.
Yeah. And then I noticed a lot of people are asking about dinosaurs swimming underwater, being in the ocean, like the Mosasaurus.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us about, do dinosaurs exist underwater, or is that something else? Do they fly in the sky? Do they exist underwater?
It's just like modern humans. I mean, we can go swim out in the ocean, but we're not going to hang out in the ocean all day long. We're going to go back to land. So dinosaurs can go into water, yeah. However, if you are underwater, like a mosasaur, you're technically not a dinosaur.
Okay.
And from my understanding, again, I'm not a dinosaur paleontologist, so I can't speak intimately about dinosaurs. I know all of you are wanting dinosaur material, but yeah, from my understanding, if you are underwater, you're not technically a dinosaur. You are yeah, that's what I'll say about that. Yeah. You're not. I think that's all I can really be firm on.
I think that's confusing to a lot of people. Some people think like dinosaurs flew in the sky and dinosaurs swam in the ocean, but
my little dinosaur chart over here. I do, but yeah, that's not going to help us. Yeah, right before there's the tree of life, and right before the branch of the dinosaurs pops out, there are the pterosaurs, and so they're very closely related to dinosaurs, but they're technically not in the Dinosauria clade or grouping.
Okay. And we're actually getting close to the kind of at the very end and running out of time. Is there anything else you wanted to share kind of about the fossil world in San Diego, or your work at the museum? Anything that you want to share out before that we maybe didn't get to cover?
Oh man, there's so much to cover. You only gave me 20 minutes.
I know. And you did an amazing job. I mean, millions of years condensed down.
That was, yeah, we screamed through time, you guys. That was a lot to cover in a very short period of time. And there's a lot more to talk about. And I wish I could have spoken intimately about many different things. But, that is, if there were any questions that you guys have, I would say, ask a guardian, ask a teacher, ask someone if they might know. So yeah, inquiring minds, get those answers.
Awesome. And we'll share, Ms. Emma will throw in the chat right now. We have some resources for you because we do have this amazing exhibit. A lot of these images that we shared and fossils are from, they're on display in Fossil Mysteries at the museum. You can do a walkthrough of geologic time like we did. And we have a guide for them. We also have videos online of Chris showing you around the lab and a bit about what he does at the museum, so you can dive deeper with that. Those are really fun. We have other resources we'll throw up into the chat for you guys. And then next month we have program, we're going to be looking at animal architects. So join us for that. That's on February 25th. And you can go to the same place you RSVP'd for this program to join us for that. And then I'm getting a lot of thank yous, and that was really great, and people are loving it, and thank you so much for your time. So thank you, everybody, and we'll be posting this to our YouTube page. But thanks so much for joining us, everybody. Thank you, Chris. That was amazing. I learned so much, and I know that it just got me excited to go start looking up and researching so much more. And I know the museum has a lot of resources for that. So poke around on our website and have fun with that. And thanks to everybody that joined us from all over the world and the country, and that was so exciting. Yeah. So thanks, everybody. We're going to say bye now and have a wonderful weekend. and week. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.